All right, everybody. So today we're diving into something pretty essential to our digital lives phone screens.
Yeah, those glowing rectangles we spend hours staring at every day.
Exactly. Ever pull out your phone and wonder, how does this incredibly sharp image actually get to my eyeballs?
Or what's the actual difference between all those acronyms you see, like LCD, OLED, IPS?
Yeah, they're thrown around a lot.
Right, it can feel like a secret language sometimes.
It kind of is. But don't worry, today we're breaking that code. We're doing a deep dive into the fascinating world of mobile display technology.
We'll go from the basic science to all the components you probably didn't even know were there.
By the end of this, you'll be able to walk into a store and confidently choose the perfect display for your needs.
No more feeling overwhelmed by all the tech specs.
Exactly.
So let's kick things off with the big showdown, LCD versus OLED. I'm already imagining a boxing ring, two screens going head to head.
Uh-huh. I love the enthusiasm. But instead of a boxing match, think of it more like a battle of technologies.
Okay, a tech battle royale.
Uh-huh.
I'm down. So in one corner, we have LCD, short for liquid crystal display. This tech has been around for a while.
Yeah, like those old chunky computer monitors. Remember those?
Exactly. But thankfully, things have evolved a lot since then.
Phew.
But the basic idea remains the same. Imagine a sandwich with two slices of polarized glass, as the bread and liquid crystals in between, acting like the filling.
Okay, I'm visualizing this. Go on.
These crystals twist and turn when you hit them with an electrical charge. This twisting and turning controls how much light from a backlight passes through to your eyes.
So it's like blinds on a window, but instead of blocking sunlight, they're controlling the light from the phone's backlight. That's actually pretty ingenious.
It is pretty clever. But that constant backlight is also why LCDs sometimes struggle with those really deep, rich blacks.
Right, because even when the screen's showing a dark scene, that backlight is still on, making the blacks look a bit washed out. I've definitely noticed that on some older phones.
Exactly. Now, in the other corner, we have OLED, which stands for Organic Light Emitting Diode. Think of it like a stadium full of tiny, independent lights.
Wait, so each pixel is like its own little light bulb.
You got it. Each pixel in an OLED panel creates its own light, which means no backlight is needed. So when a pixel needs to be black, it simply turns off completely. And that's how you get those incredible, true blacks.
That makes so much sense. And I gotta say, seeing those deep blacks and vibrant colors on an OLED screen for the first time is seriously impressive.
It's a game changer for sure. And because those pixels are self-illuminating, OLEDs can offer incredibly fast response times. You know that slight lag you sometimes see when you're scrolling through a web page or playing a game?
Oh yeah, especially noticeable on those cheaper phones, right?
Exactly. That's where OLED shines, literally. Its quick response time means smoother, more fluid motion, which is a huge deal for gamers or really anyone who wants a really seamless experience.
So OLED has those stunning blacks and super fast response times, but there's always a catch, isn't there? What about this burn-in thing I keep hearing about?
Ah, you're bringing up an important point. It's true, OLED does carry a slightly higher risk of burn-in compared to LCD. Since those organic compounds are constantly emitting light, if you display a static image for a really long time, it could leave a faint ghost image.
So I probably shouldn't leave my phone on the same news app 247.
Probably not the best idea. But the good news is that modern OLED tech has gotten incredibly good at mitigating burn-in. Manufacturers have come up with techniques like pixel shifting to prevent those static elements from burning in. It's like giving those pixels a little micro workout.
Pixel shifting, that's pretty clever. I'm starting to realize just how much engineering goes into something we use every single day. So we've got OLED, stunning visuals, super fast, but with that slight burn-in concern, although it's way less of an issue these days.
That's a great summary. But it's not the whole story. While OLED might be the popular kid on the block, LCD still has a few tricks up its sleeve, especially when you start looking at the different types of LCD panels out there. And believe me, they each come with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Oh yeah, here come those acronyms again. IPS, TN, VA. They're everywhere, but I have no idea what they actually mean. It's like a secret code for the tech savvy.
Don't worry, we'll decode it all right now.
Ugh.
Let's start with IPS, which stands for in-plane switching. Remember those liquid crystals that control the light?
Hmm.
Well, with IPS, instead of twisting, they rotate horizontally. And this, my friend, is where things get really interesting.
Okay, horizontal rotation. Got it. But how does that actually affect what I see on my screen?
Okay, so think about this. You're trying to show someone a photo on your phone, but the second you tilt the screen, the colors start to look all washed out.
Ugh, yes. The worst, especially when you're trying to show off those vacation pictures.
The worst. And that's way less likely to happen with IPS panels. That horizontal rotation of the liquid crystals I was talking about, that's what allows for much wider viewing angles.
So with IPS, I can finally show off those sunset pics without them looking dull from certain angles. That's
Ah,
a win in my book.
definitely a win. IPS panels are known for their excellent color accuracy and those wide viewing angles we talked about.
Mm,
That's probably why you'll mostly see them on higher-end devices.
makes sense. So IPS equals vibrant, accurate colors no matter how I hold my phone. What about TN panels? That's another one that pops up all the time.
Right. TN stands for Twisted Pneumatic. It's an older type of LCD tech, but don't underestimate it. These panels are known for their crazy fast response times. We're talking lightning fast refresh rates, a gamer's dream.
Hold on, refresh rates. You're going to have to explain that one to me like I'm 5.
Okay, imagine you're watching a video of a race car speeding around a track. With a slow refresh rate, that car would probably look blurry, especially as it whips around those corners.
Okay, I can see that.
But with a high refresh rate, the image on the screen is refreshing more frequently, so you get a much smoother, crisper picture, even with all that high-speed action.
So it's all about how smoothly the image updates on the screen. Yeah, I get it now. Makes sense why that'd be a big deal for gaming. No one wants to see a blurry race car.
Exactly. Higher refresh rate equals less motion blur, smoother animations, just a more responsive gaming experience overall. And that's where TN panels really shine.
Sounds like TN panels are the way to go for gamers then. But there's always a trade-off, right? Like, what's the downside?
You're right, there's always a balance. So while they're great for speed, TN panels sometimes fall short in the color accuracy and viewing angle department, especially compared to those IPS panels we were talking about earlier.
Right, right. So it's like choosing between a cheetah and a chameleon. One's super fast, the other blends in beautifully. Okay, last one, VA panels. What's their superpower?
VA, vertical alignment, by the way,
Yeah.
it's all about finding that middle ground,
Yeah.
striking a balance between the vivid colors you get with IPS and those beat blacks we were talking about with OLED, all while still maintaining pretty decent response times.
So the best of both worlds. Sign me up.
Well, not quite. It's more like a compromise, right? They might not be as vibrant as IPS or have those crazy fast refresh rates of TN, but they often hit that sweet spot for people who want great contrast and image quality without, breaking the bank.
So, like, getting a really solid all-rounder phone. Not necessarily the flashiest, but reliable and gets the job done.
Perfect way to put it.
This is honestly making me look at my phone screen in a whole new light,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling there's more to it than just what we see on the surface, right? What about all the stuff going on behind the scenes?
You're absolutely right. We've been talking about the stars of the show, but like you said, there's a whole supporting cast of components working behind the scenes to make all that magic happen.
Ooh, the hidden heroes. I love a good behind-the-scenes reveal. What are we talking about here? Give me the good stuff.
Let's start with something I'm sure everyone uses every single day, Wi-Fi. Think about it, you're just casually scrolling through your phone, totally oblivious to the fact that there's this tiny antenna working overtime to keep you connected.
An antenna. Seriously. I just assumed the Wi-Fi signal magically beamed into my phone somehow.
If only it were that easy. Your phone actually has a small antenna tucked away somewhere, and you'll never guess its placement is actually super important. Manufacturers put a lot of thought into finding the best spot for it, usually around the edges of the display, to avoid interference and maximize signal strength.
Wow, who knew? So next time my Wi-Fi is acting up, I'm checking for antenna placement. All right, what else am I taking for granted? What about microphones? I use those for everything calls, voice memos, those embarrassing karaoke sessions in the car.
And those microphones have come a long way.
Yeah.
Remember those old flip phones where you practically had to swallow the phone to be heard?
Oh, I can still hear the muffled, "Can you hear me now?" echoing from the early 2000s.
Thankfully, technology has marched on. Today's smartphones have multiple microphones, often strategically placed to capture the best possible audio, no matter what you're recording.
Multiple microphones, so like a tiny recording studio tucked away inside my phone. That's incredible.
It is pretty cool.
Well, yeah.
And their placement isn't just about making you sound crystal clear. It's about enabling things like noise cancellation during calls, making sure your voice cuts through, even in noisy environments.
Microphone placement, key for audio quality and all those features we rely on. Okay, last but not least, we've got to talk about cameras. Those things have become ridiculously good on smartphones. From those blurry selfies back in the day to the portrait mode masterpieces we have now, it's crazy how good smartphone cameras have become.
It really is. And just like with the microphones we were talking about, camera placement is a big deal. It's not just a case of sticking it in wherever it fits. Manufacturers have to consider lens size, sensor placement, all while making sure your phone doesn't turn into a brick.
Right. It's amazing how much thought goes into these things. Most of us just use them every day without even realizing all the tech packed in there. It's like those hidden Mickeys at Disney World. You start seeing them everywhere.
Such a good analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of things we might take for granted, let's talk about the unsung hero of the smartphone world, the touchscreen.
Oh,
We spend all day tapping, swiping, pinching that thing, but how many of us actually know how it works?
okay, you got me there. I have no clue. I just assumed it was magic. What's actually going on when my finger touches the screen?
Well, most smartphones these days use what's called a capacitive touchscreen. So under the glass, there's this layer that holds a static electrical charge, right?
Okay.
And your finger, because we conduct a small electrical charge when it makes contact with the screen, it disrupts that field.
You mean my finger creates a tiny electrical storm on my phone every time I send a text?
Kind of. It's these little disruptions that are registered by sensors, and then those sensors are what tell your phone's processor exactly where you touch the screen.
Wow, that's actually incredible. So it knows whether I'm tapping an app, scrolling through a web page, or, trying to beat that impossible level on my favorite game.
Exactly. That's how it all works.
So much going on behind the scenes. This has been super fascinating, but if our listeners could only take away one thing from this whole conversation, what would you want it to be?
Well, first, I hope everyone listening has a newfound appreciation for the technology we literally carry around in our pockets. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
I know, right? It's like we're carrying around mini supercomputers.
We totally are.
Yeah.
But I think the most important takeaway is that now you're armed with the knowledge to make informed decisions next time you're shopping for a new phone.
No more staring blankly at those spec sheets, right?
Exactly. Don't just skip over those display specs. They tell you a lot about your viewing experience. Ask yourself, what am I actually going to be using this phone for? Are you a gamer who needs super fast refresh rates? A photography fanatic who needs perfect color accuracy to show off those photos? Or do you just want those amazing cinematic blacks and vibrant colors of an OLED screen for streaming movies?
It's all about finding the right display for your needs and priorities.
100%. And even after all of that, we've only just scratched the surface today. We could do a whole other deep dive on foldable screens or even those transparent displays we might have in the future.
Ooh, now there's an episode I'd tune in for. But until next time, listeners, keep those screens glowing, and we'll catch you on the deep dive, where we unpack even more fascinating tech topics.